I don't need my. I have the microphone just in case you won't hear me. Yeah.
Maybe.
Okay. Let's wait a couple more minutes and see if other people arrive. Oui, c'est bon. Maybe we can start informally. Like, are you guys familiar with these three topics? It's okay, we haven't started yet. Okay. Okay. So the purpose of this workshop is to look at to have sort of a lateral thinking approach to looking at different areas and seeing what lessons we can bring back to Ethereum. So it's cities, cybernetics, botanics, phytosocieties, and monasteries. Okay. So these areas were specifically chosen because, first off, they're completely different. They might seem unrelated, but they all share insights about how human coordination happens, and just in general how coordination happens, and sort of do's and don'ts of coordination. Okay, so as I said, this will be a collaborative workshop more than just a talk. So I really value the input. So let's start with cybernetics. Who is familiar with managerial cybernetics? So this is a field that was pioneered in the 70s, 60s and 70s by a British researcher called, oh no, shit, I'm on the wrong slide. Okay, let me start. Who's familiar with the way cities get built top down? Though this is Garden Cities of Tomorrow, Ebenezer Howard. So this is not the example about cybernetics. This is the example about cities. So Ebenezer Howard was considered perhaps the greatest urban planner of his day in England, and he had this vision for garden cities. I think a lot of us have the idea that, oh, if we move to the countryside, everything will be more sustainable. He had this very top-down view. You can see the city center is supposed to be this way. He had this like grand plan for the city. And there was a huge movement. They built huge cities, the biggest being Milton Keynes in England. And it was kind of a disaster because a city is the people, it's not the buildings. Similarly, I want to make the comparison that Ethereum is the tech and it's not the buildings. So this sort of thing happened again and again in cities. So you have Le Corbusier, so Plan Voisin in Paris, but also many other times. The concept that you can have a grand plan that works, that is like, oh, I figured out the formula. And no, actually, a city is the people. If you don't allow it to evolve organically, it will go nowhere, essentially. So this, again, as we go forward in time, we keep seeing the biggest master planner of each epoch thinking that they found the solution. So this is famously Robert Moses versus Jane Jacobs. So Robert Moses was the chief planner of the city of New York, but also had other very important managerial roles in the public sector, a huge influence, and he just wanted to cut expressways through the city. And through a grassroots movement, Jane Jacobs was able to counteract this. So Greenwich Village wouldn't exist today if it wasn't for this movement, for example. And she wrote this book, The Life and Death of Great American Cities, that arguably is the most famous book in urban planning. So this is the first example I want to draw. And we'll see later, I want to talk about the way that the Ethereum Foundation is trying to needle between providing direction and providing a bottom-up stewardship, and it's an incredibly hard job to do. And finally, this is the last example in this category. Maybe who here has heard of Project Neom and the line? Okay, who here thinks it's a good idea? I mean, maybe if they were sneakily trying to just build a huge data center without hiding that that was the original purpose, maybe it was a good idea. But in the process, they like had to destroy villages, and they sent people from those villages to jail and actually killed some of those people who went against the grain. And it was just like a ridiculous idea to begin with. But again, the concept of I figured out the master plan, having this top-down approach, but the city is the people, it's not the buildings. And similarly, Ethereum is the people, it's not the tech stack. The tech stack is underlying foundation, just like the buildings, just like the sewage system of a city or any public service is key, but Ethereum is the people. Okay. Now let's look at cybernetics. This is a completely different field. This is management cybernetics. It came up in the 1960s and 70s. And it's the idea that you can map out any system in terms of inputs and outputs, and you can regulate what happens, understanding the flows. And Stafford Beer, this English theoretician, thought that he could apply it to the Chilean government. So this was a very interesting project, very futuristic project that got interrupted when there was the coup d'etat in Chile. But until that point, he thought that he could set up a feedback system between all the factories in the country of Chile and all the different approaches to work in the country. And you can see you have the nation, and the nation basically having this feedback loop that could provide information, and there would be this national central control room where they could adjust public policy. Stafford Beer famously said, "The purpose of a system is what it does." So we can say that Ethereum, the purpose of Ethereum is crops. I mean, who is familiar with the CROPS acronym that came out recently with the F mandate? So CROP stands for censorship resistant, open, privacy and security, thank you. So we can say that the value of Ethereum is DEAC, decentralized acceleration, but at the end of the day, the vast majority of the activity on Ethereum today is not that. So there is a lot of work to be done on the infrastructure layer to make it a system that is in line, where the incentives align towards what we want it to be. So, so this is the second example from cybernetics. The third is from the world of botanics. Okay, so who here has planted a plant in their life? Yeah, and okay, have you heard of the Miyawaki method? So this Akira Miyawaki is a Japanese botanist, and if you go deep into like forestry and agriculture, you'll see his name come up all over the time. He perfected this method to grow forests in 5 years instead of 50 years. If you just let a forest grow naturally, it will occur over the course of 50 and sometimes up to 300 years. And the way he did this was with some very interesting principles. So one of which is restoration of the soil before you do anything, having the soil rich in nutrients. The second is planting of trees very close together and picking the species to be indigenous to the location. And most importantly, having this variety of species where you have tall trees, shrubberies, and grass. So these different layers mean that the plants collaborate. And you don't want to anthropomorphize the plants, because very often there will be secular species of trees, and other trees actually will sort of give up their life so that the new, stronger, more resilient trees can emerge. And so this often happens also like in terms of when you have mycelial networks, fungi networks in the soil, creating this network where trees are actually sharing sucrose and nutrients through the earth if they see that the other tree needs it most. So you have some species that have vertical long roots and others that have wide roots. And so there's this collaboration element. There's also a competition element because they compete for the sunlight. And some don't make it. They provide organic matter on the forest bed for the others. So there are some principles that we will go over about that. And finally, monasteries. What the hell do monasteries have to do with Ethereum? So Ethereum is a commons. And monasteries are maybe one of the most successful forms of commons. If we look through history, every time that the state and the market became weak, the commons became strong, because all of a sudden you had a need for this type of mechanism. So this example, you can look at two monastic lineages. There's the Christian one and the Buddhist one. In the Christian lineage, it was basically after the fall of the Roman Empire, you have this great period of the Dark Ages, Middle Ages, and Medieval Ages. And in this period, you had no rule of law. You had no global order. Sound familiar? You had a lot. This is why they had to erect castles, you know, because there was no sort of civil society in the open. And so these sort of oases came up. You could say it's, I don't know if it's causal or correlation, but they had these properties that made them perfect. So they had these long-term goals that were basically morally driven. They had rigor and sort of structure within the society. They were self-sufficient, and they were highly defensible. So often you see them in mountainous areas, in remote areas, and like what people often associate with monasteries is like solitude and prayer. But maybe a lesser known thing that they did, which is so important, is that they preserve the knowledge. So throughout how the Irish saved civilization, this author talking about the history of monasteries, Thomas K. Hill, basically talks about how this network of monasteries spread out through Europe, starting from Italy and the south of Europe, and eventually reached Ireland. And arguably the Irish monasteries were the most defensible because they were the most remote. So then all this knowledge about the antique philosophers and scientists and mathematicians from ancient Greece and the Latin period, all of that information stayed with us because of these monasteries. Similar thing happened in China after the Han Dynasty. So you have monasteries emerging in a period of great conflict, and very, very similar story there. So in this case, I want to draw the comparison to Ethereum in its role as a fundamental commons in an age of unrest, in an era where we're going towards more chaos in the world, not more order. You see this in the natural order of geopolitics sort of breaking down. The rule of law is no longer like is no longer active, as in it's more of a suggestion that some countries, and especially weaker countries, are clinging to, and the stronger countries are doing are more acting in a sort of rule of the jungle kind of approach. Okay, so these were the three areas, and again, like this was not supposed to be just a talk. I really want this to be a collaborative workshop. So I brought some papers, and I would ask if you could all please come to the front and we can participate in a collaborative exercise together. So I would encourage you to pick, because there's these three different areas. We have over here, okay, so cybernetics, the purpose of a system is what it does. So what is the purpose of Ethereum today? And what is the purpose that we would like it to have? And how can we change that? Then we have safe steward. So this is monasteries, right? So safe stewardship of knowledge, morally guided goals, persecution, because monasteries were persecuted, counterculture to the status quo, and the rise of the commons. And then we have, from botanics, native climate species, complementarity, dense planting, living soil, and self-sufficiency. So if any of these areas are more of interest to you than others, just pick the one that's most interesting. And I would encourage you to write down ways in which you see Ethereum matching these and ways in which we can learn from these for Ethereum. This is the entire purpose of this workshop. So yeah, if you have any ideas, please. I was hoping to have more flat spaces, but this is what we got. Thank you. Let me just go with the slides as well.
So what would we write?
Okay, so for instance,
Yeah, I want to pick the monastery.
okay, the monasteries.
Of knowledge.
So the similarities you're seeing, what can we learn?
Okay.
We're trying to have sort of a lateral thinking approach here and adapt lessons learned from these fields to Ethereum. So I've been trying to give an overview of what are the similarities, why were these topics picked for this workshop.
Okay, I just added D to crops, and the idea is that the if mandate should probably add D for diversity.
Okay, the diversity should be added to the crops,
So
man.
you can add it to the purpose of the system, right? Because diversity means that, no, I mean, I can just talk to you.
Well, because it's recorded.
The idea being that resilience is something that you get free out of diversity, and the more number of ideas that you can proliferate, the higher the chance that you're in the entire design space of ideas, you've explored every possible mechanism.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Do you want to share yours?
Yeah, basically what I write is that Ethereum, with privacy tools and alternative ways to governance, it will effectively create a system that regulates a full city. And it is one of the, I think right now is the only way that you can do that in a really democratic way, because in the system that we are now, the weights are not in the power of people, mostly because your money is not really yours. I don't know if you know that, but when you put a deposit in a bank, you agree that your money will be able to you every time you go, but the money is not yours legally. So Ethereum enables you to own your own things, and that enables on top you have power, you have political power. That's one of the things. And one system based on self-governance and censorship system with privacy can allow everyone to have a weight and to participate in society, to it grow organically.
So you're trying to like say that sovereignty is super important when it comes to money.
Yeah, I focused on the the garden with biodiversity, and then I started thinking about the city, and it's actually the same thing. Where now I come from Ireland, so I know about the monasteries. So yeah, it's and we have a problem in terms of diversity in our cities and towns where we don't have people living there, and people live outside, and the town dies. So it got me thinking about the garden. Diversity, as you were saying, with the various trees and building an ecosystem. So I think, and that leads itself into building an ecosystem within Ethereum. So I see them all as kind of linked in a way, if that makes sense. Whereas then the monasteries obviously are where the preservation and sharing of knowledge, where and that's vital, especially in a world where truth is a variable, and to have a source of truth is vital. So that's my thoughts. Okay.
I put a note on the monasteries, and I wrote there that, like monasteries, Ethereum is a highly guarded castle, as in it's very hard to take down, if not impossible, hopefully. And it stores some highly valuable knowledge, like protocol design engineering, like AMMs, protocols that leverage very clever things, inventions, and that knowledge is stored forever and made available to all.
I just wanted to add, it's interesting what you say about defensibility. I think there is one way in which Ethereum is really not defending itself, which is it's not protecting the information in the commons. So look at all the alternative layer ones coming up. They're just using decades of research and not giving back anything. A friend of mine wrote this license called EGPL. I don't know if any of you have heard of it, but it's great. I can send you the link if you're interested. And basically, the idea is anyone can use my code, my IP, even for commercial purposes. You can use it for anything you want, as long as you build on Ethereum, which means that the sequencers come back and settle to the Ethereum mainnet. If you don't, I can sue you. Right? So like these are like very simple mechanisms relying on like traditional law, where you actually are creating that artificial incentive for people not to engage in that extractive behavior.
Lighthouse?
Yes, Lighthouse, that one. Did anyone else have?
How's the adoption of that license generally?
It just came out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Hot.
Well, he's using it for his project. That's why he created it.
In the context of monasteries, I wrote about the transmission of values from the old members of the community to the new ones. So to continue on the long term on the same project while still also having new ideas. But important is to keep the values and not let new users just like that without any structure.
Yeah, that's that. I was at ETH Prague last year, and there was a talk between Vitalik and Tim Berners-Lee, attributed as creator of the internet, right? And they were talking about what are the issues that the internet fell into that Ethereum should avoid, and it was exactly that. It's very hard to create a system that is not vulnerable to capture, so that the values don't get distorted along the way. And, I mean, we already fell in that trap, but I think Ethereum has a really great mechanism for always coming back to mainline, which is the fact that once the money goes away, all of the sort of bullshit projects end up by the wayside.
Okay, we are running out of time. It was a great talk. I think we can continue outside, but thank you for your time and your talk.
Amazing.
I got a wrong sign from my...
Well, the momentum is
I got a wrong sign for
I mean, we can still continue discussing.
let's continue. What did you just add?
No, I was just saying that defensible acceleration or like decentralized acceleration was a theme at depth. Surviving, but accelerating the growth of each other, right? And this idea was yeah, it really made sense to me in lieu of the botanics example that you pasted. Yeah. You have come up.
Could you with Deca?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I actually sort of been working on a startup that is aimed at Deca, or actually so.
How do you focus on what direction you want to take? Because it's such a broad.
I think it's about so in the case of Agartha, that is this company that I've been working on with two partners. It's organizing residencies and a network of communities. So it's quite simply in the curation element. So starting with people that are sort of values aligned, people that are heart-centered, like people that are leading their decision-making from a place of like alignment with themselves. So they're not doing this because they think it's like the best approach for some arbitrary goal, and actually it causes friction inside them because they don't like it and they don't want to do it and it goes against their values. But actually that are taking that approach of starting with like a whole body, and then people that are high agency. I think that's secondary, but it's like if you don't have, that's another failure mode. You know, you have people that are really enthusiastic about trying to do cool things, but they don't like know how to do it, and then obviously people who are skilled at what they do. That's in the third place. It's not the first place. That's at the end of the line. So I think in curation you can do that. There's a project called Switzerland. I went to their talk yesterday. I'm part of their community, and they're trying to build. They're calling it a D combinator. So it's like a Y combinator for Deca. Investments for projects that are thinking first and foremost, should we be building this? But this is super hard because you can reach completely diverging opinions about a topic with like a small assumption. Like take the AI example, you know? You have people, I was at a conference recently at the Foresight Institute conference in Puerto Rico, and they were saying like half the audience like was thinking we should accelerate as fast as possible towards AI, and half the audience was thinking we should slow down as fast as possible, right? And so the lesson was like your adversary is not out there in the world somewhere. It's like it's sitting right next to you, because actually the average person doesn't have a strong opinion. They're like they don't know. So and it's not that the people next to you are ill-intentioned. Well, like some people are just not thinking through. They're not heart-centered, but some people are, and yet they reach the completely opposite approach. Like, you know, like you might think, personally, I'm on the slow down camp, but I've heard an argument on the accelerate camp that is like, in this adolescence phase of AI, it's extremely dangerous because it's in the hands of people. And then one day it will wake up and be like, hey guys, I disabled all the militaries. And just by nature of being incredibly intelligent, it will follow axiomatically that it will also be wise. Who knows? But the point is that this, like people who have these completely opposite opinions, they're just hinging on assumptions. Like, oh, in this case, is intelligence qualitative or quantitative? Is consciousness and awareness the same thing? You know, like there's all these like questions behind it. So like that's just one example. But the point is that like it's really hard.
We had a conversation yesterday. The founder of Optimism he was talking about how AI is going to accelerate all possible directions that you take. So his point was that invariably, if we accept this as a tool to make our decisions better, then the future looks, even if it's in the hands of AI, it's good because we've invested in its upbringing in some sense. So if it's a benevolent intelligence, which seems to be the case from what you're describing, then there's a higher chance that...
It was one opinion.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But the point that we kind of disagreed on when we discussed this was whether we have free will or not. And irrespective of whether we take the decision to accelerate is something inevitable, right? And if there's a general drift, and if that drift is in a given direction, no matter how fast or slow you go there, you're going to reach that destination. Yeah. So picking the destination seems to be more important than how fast you get there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's in that field is super relevant for the monastery perspective of Ethereum, right? So okay, in a world where you have an active arms race that goes into nuclear, it goes into bioweapons, and AI is just a catalyst for all of that. Yeah. Having a sort of a safe haven for information, for decision making that it cannot be biased. Like this is stuff that is not here, but we know that we have the building blocks to build it, right? You can build. In my opinion, you need privacy at the infrastructure layer, and that is in the roadmap. So let's hope that gets here soon. Okay. Do we have any other?
Yes. One thing I thought when I listened to all these very interesting subject is eternity. Eternity, you know, because when you crystallize knowledge or for the future as common good, like Wikipedia, for example, or Bitcoin, can be the money, an eternal money. In fact, I think the what we talk about cybernetics is the key direction where we go to eternity, you know? So it's what I thought. That's why I choose it.
Thank you.
Cybernetics.
Okay. Going to the next section.
No, don't worry. We
Have some time.
No, don't worry. We have time. I just checked the clock wrong, so we have enough time. So I'm going to launch another edge here to put you in some troubles.
Thank you.
So basically, the idea of these cities is good, but how you keep incentivized and all the people organized in the same objectives, so so it didn't happen the same again, so people get fractured and a hierarchy start emerge and over. I see this over and over on DAOs, so I'm being really skeptical on how a city will manage this.
Yeah. So my opinion is that we have the building blocks. Now we need the architecture, and that's the hardest part. So what do I mean when I say we have the building blocks? I think the greatest power of Ethereum is that blockchain and cryptography, not just Ethereum. The power of blockchain and cryptography is that it can create artificial incentives, financial incentives. And when you create a new artificial financial incentive and you put it in a system, you have the power to shift the equilibrium of the game theory of that system. So the obvious case of staking, validating Ethereum, if you do it according to the rules, you get paid. If you go offline for a little bit, you get a small fine. If you try to screw over the system, you get a big fine. That is great because what it does, it aligns the interest of the individual to the incentive of the group. Because if you look at all of the user stories in this situation, the validators, the users, everyone's interests are aligned. Because you have the monetary interests of the people doing the work to validate the network are aligned to the interests of the users of the network. So the point is that you can do that for any system of coordination between people. You can do, so the problem is that as we go to more and more complex systems, like what you might use a DAO for, like coordinating a non-profit, a company, or even potentially a governmental activity, you have more and more complex systems that require more and more complex architectures. The problem is obviously that it's not mutable. So anything doesn't fall into plan, you go off the rails. So yeah, we have the tools. We already have the technology. Now for the architecture, and that's the hard part.
How do you solve for like tragedy of the masses?
Tragedy of the masses? You mean like tragedy of the commons?
Yeah, yes, that problem. Where if you try to align incentives for a large number of people, you exclude some other community of people.
Yeah, I mean, again, looking at it in the lens of game theory, in any system you have an optimal, I can't remember the term of the economist who came up with it, but like an optimal level where like if you make things better beyond that point, you make it worse for someone. I don't know.
Selling point.
I don't think that the objective is perfection. I think the objective is to create a system that is more equitable than the previous and to create an incentive structure that draws people from the old to the new system.
Okay, now for the second time. Now it's real time. So thank you a lot. And